It's not in the best interests of my residents to remain in this group or in this party. So effective immediately, I'm resigning the Labour whip and resigning my membership, and I will sit on the opposition benches. Thank you. The Labour group said it challenged the government seriously when it did things the group didn't agree with, but instead of supporting a perfectly good motion, you've watered it down and added a few mealy-mouthed words in, a few mealy-mouthed amendments. And knowing how the group operates, it's such a farce, right? It is such a farce. You will have sent it off to the party to get it approved before you put the amendment in. So you've asked the people we're criticising to check it before putting it into this council. Just what's the point? They're just pathetic games. After everything this government's done, and you're going to try and deflect it back onto the Tories, try and deflect it back onto the Lib Dems, but it's our government doing this now, and they're breaking every value we're supposed to hold dear in the party. They're breaking every principle this group, the leader and deputy leader in the past, have claimed to hold. And I don't know what we're doing as a group. It seems we're trying to play this halfway game of trying to show as residents we're doing some criticism, but just enough, just not stepping over the line. I know we're here to genuinely represent as residents, or we're more bothered about as positions and as allowances. That's what it comes down to for me. Right, I've been kicked off the Transport Committee for for the budget meeting. It doesn't bother me.
You speak to the amendment, please, not your personal issues with the council. Thank you.
And I think a lot of councillors in this chamber need to seriously understand the problems people are having in this district. They can't go on any longer with more cuts to services, with more cuts to disability benefits. I've struggled myself in life, and I'm not going to stand by and watch a party in government that I've given a lot of my life to go and attack those people and try and put them in a position that I've been in myself in the past. And this group needs to be doing more. Just weekly asking them to rethink or kindly asking them to change course isn't enough. Right? We need to be demanding the change course. We need to be working with other councils. We need to be working with the unions to try and bring about some more positive change where we're not cutting we're not cutting disabled people's benefits. We're not freezing grandmas. We're not keeping hundreds of thousands of kids trapped in poverty. That's not the Labour Party I want to be part of. That's not a group that's just going along with things like that. Is not one I want to be part of. And after this attempt at watering down the motion, the statement the other week, the weak statement and the austerity and the benefits cuts, it's not in the best interests of my residents to remain in this group or in this party. So effective immediately, I'm resigning the Labour whip and resigning my membership, and I will sit on the opposition benches. Thank you.
A blistering resignation speech delivered by local councillor Jake has sent shockwaves through the Labour Party's grassroots ranks as he announced his departure from the party whip, citing what he calls a betrayal of working-class communities and an unforgivable continuation of austerity under a Labour government. Speaking during a heated debate on austerity and welfare cuts, Jake accused his fellow Labour councillors of moral cowardice and political duplicity. His motion, which called for an end to austerity, the reversal of all welfare cuts, and the proper financing of local government, was met not with support, but, as he describes, with deflection, defense of government policy, and a watered-down compromise that fell far short of meaningful opposition. The councillor, who represents Hemsworth, Kinsley, Fitzwilliam, South Heandley, and Falkirk, made it clear that his resignation was not a snap decision, but rather the culmination of mounting frustration with what he described as a party unwilling to call the government's cuts for what they really are, a continuation of Tory austerity. In a particularly damning comparison, Jake highlighted that the latest tranche of welfare cuts under the Labour government ranks as the fifth largest since 2010 and the largest since 2015. Essentially, he noted, this so-called Labour government is cutting benefits at higher levels than 9 of the 14 years the Tories were in office. More striking still was his charge that the Labour-led cuts to disability benefits go 3 times further than those that prompted the resignation of former Tory dupe Secretary Ian Duncan Smith in 2016. The resignation also follows a prior suspension from the Labour Party, after Jake voted against a council austerity budget that slashed $29 million in services, cut 250 jobs, and raised council tax to the legal maximum. According to him, the local Labour cabinet misled the public about the scale of job losses and performed deceptive U-turns on library and garden waste service cuts. His remarks strike a raw nerve within a party increasingly accused by its own base of abandoning its founding mission. As the national leadership continues its shift towards centrism, anger from local representatives disillusioned with top-down policy decisions is beginning to spill into public view. Jake will now sit as an independent on the council's opposition benches, vowing to continue representing his constituents without the constraints of what he perceives as a compromised party machine. His departure will no doubt resonate beyond local politics, feeding into a growing national narrative of Labour's internal identity crisis, one that risks alienating its traditional support base at a time when trust in mainstream politics is already in free fall. Whether this act of rebellion is an isolated cry of conscience or the beginning of a broader fracture remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. Jake's resignation wasn't just political. It was a scathing moral indictment of his party's direction.
Energy companies in this country are taxed at 78% on energy profits. That pushes up prices too.
No, that's wrong. Look,
It's not 78%?
It is 78%, but it's not incredible.
Whereas obviously regular corporate tax is 25%.
It's really important to make this point. Oil and gas is set, the price of oil and gas is set on the international market. The reason why...
That's the raw commodity price, in the same way that the prices of batteries is set on the raw, the raw commodity price.
It's not set by the tax rate on UK companies, is what I'm saying. It's set by the global price. You see,
I understand that, but you're saying that tax rates don't impact pricing?
I'm saying that in relation to oil and gas, they don't, because the truth is that the price for our oil and gas is set internationally. And let me explain. If you just let me make the point. Why did prices go through the roof when Russia invaded Ukraine? Right, well, our prices went through the roof, even though we imported a very small amount from Russia. That's because whether the gas was coming from the North Sea or internationally, it was priced on the international market. That's why we're in the grip of fossil fuel markets controlled by others, petrostates and containers. And that wasn't about the UK tax rate. The UK tax rate could have been cut or higher, and it wouldn't have made an impact.
That's a separate point.
Yeah.
The floating price of commodities is a legitimate but separate point. Another point for why this country has unbelievably high energy prices is that we tax our energy companies.
No, you're wrong. I'm really sorry, but you're wrong about that because the price is set internationally. I'm really sorry, but that's not correct.
Okay, well, let's put commodities aside. If you increase taxes on supermarkets to 78%...
It depends whether it's...
If you increase taxes on supermarkets to 78%, what would happen to the price of food?
It depends.
What would happen to the price of food?
It depends whether it's a domestic market where the price is set domestically.
This is a globally unquestionable factor about economics. You're right that your point also applies. You can't flatly deny my point.
I am denying your point when it comes to the question of these internationally set prices. That's the point I'm making.
If you lowered the tax of 78% on energy companies to the regular...
On oil and gas companies, it wouldn't make a difference to the price. In fact...
Yes, it would.
I'm afraid it wouldn't because the point is that the price is set internationally.
But there are lots of things that factor into the price that we pay. The lots of supply chain costs you've mentioned yourself. This is a huge cost in the supply chain.
Ed Miliband has once again taken to the airwaves to pontificate about energy prices. Only this time, he seems to have brought a blindfold and a bag of recycled sound bites from the Gordon Brown era. As the UK faces one of the most acute energy affordability crises in its modern history, Miliband's recent commentary is a jarring cocktail of deflection, distortion, and denial. The former Labour leader and current Shadow Secretary of State for Energy and Net Zero would have us believe that spiraling energy prices are simply the byproduct of volatile international markets. A neat excuse, certainly, and one that allows him to dodge the inconvenient reality staring down his rhetoric. The UK now has the highest industrial electricity prices in the developed world. This is not some esoteric footnote in an IMF report. It's a fundamental economic handicap with real-world consequences. British manufacturers are being strangled by electricity costs, nearly double that of their counterparts in France or Germany. Energy-intensive industries, from steel to ceramics, are teetering on the brink. And yet Miliband, ever the political escapologist, seems more interested in peddling his party's ideological crusade against oil and gas than grappling with the systemic dysfunction under his own nose. Miliband's latest intervention was laced with lofty references to a green transition, a fairer economy, and, of course, the ever-present spectre of Tory incompetence. But not once did he confront the fact that his proposed solutions, ramping up wind and solar without corresponding baseload infrastructure, could make the very price volatility he decries even worse. It's time to puncture the bubble. The UK's energy crisis is not a one-off anomaly, nor is it a temporary spike driven solely by global unrest. It is a policy failure compounded by short-sighted green evangelism and a refusal to balance environmental goals with economic realism. Ed Miliband may still fancy himself the man with the answers, but until he's willing to look beyond the echo chamber of Westminster green rooms, his pronouncements will remain exactly what they are: blind claptrap masquerading as policy.